If you're on a self-discovery journey, this podcast is for you. Join us for engaging discussions with inspiring guests who offer practical strategies for embracing change and insights to navigate life's challenges and rewards. Welcome to Season 2 of Your Access Has Been Granted podcast, where we will explore the transformative power of transitions and how it leads to the intersection of where passion meets impact. We're back. Oh, welcome back. I just went into my Jeezy mode. We are back with Season 2 of Your Access Has Been Granted podcast. I am your host, Brittany Leary. I am a life coach, and I am excited. I am always excited to come back and start over. Excitement comes up in two different ways. I'm either nervous, I'm talking fast or something, but today I'm excited to be back for Season 2 of Your Access Has Been Granted podcast. And if you have been following us and you've become a regulator, you know that we just finished up the season called The Off Season. In that season, we talked about a lot about downtime, how we were resting, how we were reinventing ourselves, figuring out the parts that we needed to let go so that we could prepare ourselves for the more creative versions of ourselves that happens in the spring, in the technical new year, when you look at how nature rolls and how the seasons roll. So now that we're in the spring, we're in the new of the things, I thought to myself, what theme should season 2 embody? And when you come off the off season and you're thinking about letting go, you're obviously letting go so that you could prepare yourself for something new. And the immediate thought came to me, transitions. As a life coach, I specialize in transitions and transformations because I feel like everyone goes through those things in their lives, no matter what your profession is, no matter what your culture is. Everyone goes through transitions. Yes, we may go through them differently. Yes, we may enter certain transitions at different ages and at different times in our lives, but we all go through transitions. It's a very generalized theme in most people's lives. So I said, let's make season 2 about transitions. So in today's episode, we're going to go over what season 2 is going to entail so that we can prepare ourselves for when episode 1 comes out and we're fully prepared to take in all of the information that's going to be presented to you with your notepad and your pen, because I always want you to take notes so that we can just fully engulf in the understanding of what transitions look like and how we can easily move through the 3 phases of transitions that we're going to get into in 1 second. This season, we will concentrate on transitions as seen from different viewpoints. I am excited to invite inspiring guests from different walks of life and professions, including, but not limited to, medical professionals, health and wellness professionals, professionals in entrepreneurship, education, parents, change agents, and disruptives of all types to showcase how transitions, no matter your profession or stage in life, are vital to our journey of self-discovery. Today's episode, I'm excited to share the framework we'll be utilizing for this season as we navigate through this journey of transitions. We'll explore how these changes manifest in our daily lives, often without us even realizing their true habits and true natures. Transitions by William Bridges has guided me through some of my most challenging changes, inspiring me to use this framework as the foundation for my self-discovery journey. So in season 2, just like in the off season, I am going to take you along a ride that models the transitions or some of the experiences that I had during my transitions based on the framework of this book. His model divides transitions into 3 distinctive phrases: the ending, the neutral zone, and the new beginning. Each phase is essential in understanding and embracing change. As a huge theme in this latest edition of the book, which is actually updated by his wife after his death, after she got it well into her 70s and started to realize how much life has changed since they originally wrote the book. We will explore so many different things. And one of the biggest highlights that I have received from reading that book multiple times is that change and transition is 2 different things. And in most situations, I believe the majority of people look at change as transition. And I want us to highlight in this season what the differences between change and transitions is. That shift in perspective, that clear definition between change and transition is what led me down a more intentional path after the change of losing my niece, goddaughter Tamia. Change is very situational, and transition is very psychological. And once I understood that, it led me through a different path of healing because I understood that I was in a deep transition. One of the quotes in the book Forward that stands out to me is the idea that change without transition is just like rearranging the furniture. Nothing has literally transitioned in the room. You just change positions. And that is the literal idea that I have when I think about that difference between change and transition. When we talk about change, it could be something as simple as a change of position in your job or a change of careers. It could be losing a loved one. It could be losing the home, divorce, separation, losing a child. Like it's so many things that change invokes in us, and we look at them as transitions. But the framework that I'm going to introduce to you from the book Transitions by William Bridges is going to encourage us to take change, which is more external, and involve ourselves in a more deeper process, which is transition, which is more internal. And I am encouraging you, without a shadow of a doubt, to read this book before season two starts. If you are able to read or listen to the audiobook version of this book prior to season two, everything about season two is going to make so much more sense to you. Because although the topics of every episode may be different, the guest of every episode may be different. We are going to follow this framework throughout the whole season, primarily because I want us to ingrain this in our brain, because transitioning through life's challenges and changes is what either keeps us stuck or move us forward. The ending phase involves us recognizing and letting go of the old ways. It's about acknowledging the aspects of our lives that are no longer serving us and making space for something new. This can be a difficult step as it often involves us confronting emotions like fear and sadness, and everybody runs for those emotions. But it is a necessary part of the process. The next phase we enter is the neutral zone. Now, this might be the most difficult one for me. It's a whole lot of uncertainty here. Here we might feel as though we're in limbo, a tug of war, caught between the past and the future. However, this phase is also rich with potential for creativity and reflection. It is a time to explore new possibilities and redefine our goals. And if you know me in this podcast, the off season was all about that. The off season kind of combined the two just a little bit when you read them in that way. It is also, as much as it's an ending time in the winter, at the end of the year, preparing you for the newness, it's a big transition. It's a big ending phase. But then when you think about the neutral zone that is explained here, the off season kind of has a little bit of that neutral zone in it too. It definitely does. So when we think about the podcast and how it's structured, the off season had a lot of the ending phase and the neutral zone phase. And season two, we're getting in the new. So finally, we arrive to the new beginning. This phase is characterized by renewed energy and direction with a clearer understanding of ourselves and our path. We're ready to embrace new opportunities and challenges. And I am so excited to be here. I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but as much as I know, let me just be straight up and down. I learn a lot, I read a lot, I learn a lot. I learn a lot, I learn a lot. But there is something to be said for the execution part of the process. It's one thing to know that I need to sit down and think. It's one thing to know that I need to be still and evaluate my life and figure out what I don't need or what I have and I can't get rid of. But it's a whole nother thing to actually execute those things. Knowing is only half of the battle. I'm a curse. I know y'all ain't used to me cursing no more because I've been trying to control it. But when I was getting my certified addiction counselor license, my teacher, Tommy, I think his last name was McGee, he said one thing that has stuck with me throughout my whole life since then. He said to me, when you're working with a client, insight is bullshit. And I will never forget that, because you can know something, but until you practice and develop those skills and actually execute to see if it works for you or if it doesn't work for you, you're just insightful. You're just learning. You're just full of knowledge, but you're doing nothing with it. And that's why in the beginning of this podcast, we talked about that intersection where passion meets impact, because you could be very passionate about something, you can learn as much as you can learn, you can do all the things you want to do to develop the skill set, but if you don't actually make impact with it, whether that impact is for yourself or for your community, for your family, for your children, if you don't actually do the work to get to a point to where it's impactful, then it's just bullshit. I just had to get that out and be as raw as I had to be about that, because insight is bullshit. It's one thing to know, but it's a whole nother thing to do. And hopefully throughout this process and us working through what transitions look like, we get to the new beginning more often. Hell, hopefully we get to endings more often, and maybe we'll embrace the neutral zone just that much more, because we understand that we have an ending, a neutral zone, and a beginning. And if your goal is to get to the new, if your goal is to continue to reinvent yourself, redefine who you are, redefine your goals as much as you can to keep evolving, you're always going to be chasing that new beginning, and you're going to start to embrace the journey. That journey happens in the neutral zone, when it's time to learn, when it's time to rest, when it's time to figure out what's going to happen next. And that psychological process is very difficult. And that's why I always encourage us to build community around this self discovery process that we're in, around this podcast in general, because this work that we're doing together is not easy work. It's very difficult work. And I'm here in the studio talking to you, but trust me, I do this work every day for myself. I help my friends do this work. And I also do this work with my clients on a daily basis. So I know how hard it is. So that's why I want us to build community around the aspect of us working through transitions in season 2 and being able to come out of season 2 ready for season 3. Like, what's next? Because it's always a what's next, baby. It ain't never gonna stop. I'm speaking that into existence. We will forever keep going until it's time to move on to the next thing. Throughout this season of the podcast, we'll delve into each of these stages with our guests, exploring personal stories and insights that illuminate the transformative power of transitions, whether you're facing a career change, personal growth, or any other shift. I hope you'll find inspiration and guidance in our discussions. Before you leave, I do want to share a little bit more of my personal experience with transitions and how I end up in this book, Face First. I was in my life coaching certificate program in 2021. Oh my God, it's been that long. It was 2021, and I remember this distinctively because of the change that happened in my life. It was December of 2021 when Tamia was taken from us. Um, and right before that, if you remember from my first episode of the off season in 2019, I had lost my little cousin KJ. He was 26 years old, but he was like my baby. Grief is what led me to this book. Grief has been the neutral zone for me that has gotten me to multiple new beginnings in the last few years. I don't think that I articulated it the way that I can now, because I didn't understand transitions as much as I understood change. I believe it's easy for us to understand change because change happens so much. There's always something changing in our lives. There's always a change, whether it be as small as the car breaking down and you can't drive to work like you usually do, or as big as losing your husband, whether it be divorce or death. Change happens so often that we're all used to change. Now, what you do with that change is what triggered me to go deeper. And when KJ passed in 2019, he incited this desire in me to want to have a legacy as well. I wanted to be able to leave something behind if something happened to me. And that was what he incited in me. So in 2019, I got more serious about how am I going to get my passion to make impact. Um so I had started to work on myself. I had started to become a better version of Brittany through COVID, through 2021. I had really intentionally started to travel more, to do more, to invest in how I looked, to invest in how I felt internally. In December of 2021, when I lost Tamia, that to date is the biggest loss that I've had, not only because it was a loss, but because of how we lost her. Tamia was a 16-year-old girl in the backseat of her parents' car, probably scrolling her phone, waiting to leave the location that they were at. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She wasn't in the streets. She was an honor roll student when she passed away. She was doing everything that we had steered her to do right. She had become a better version of herself. And in the process, she encouraged me and watched me continue to become a better version of myself. And that had always fueled me. It wasn't until she passed away that I realized she was my why in a lot of situations. I didn't realize that unconditional love that parents experience with their children and how their children fuel their fire, because not only do you have you to worry about, you now have this child that is going to grow up to be an adult, that is going to grow up and be a part of society that you have to look after and help develop and guide. She was my why because although I don't have any children, she was the closest thing that I had to a child. And a lot of the reasons why I wouldn't stop doing certain things or why I kept going in certain situations was because she was watching me. She was watching me very intently. So losing her in the holiday season in December, dead in the middle of my certificate program at the University of Miami, it was crazy because I I was a leaver, right? But not in the best way. I was a ghoster. I was a dasher. Like I'm using every word I could think of. I would use my life experiences or the changes that was happening in my life to excuse me from executing. That it would excuse me from making an impact because I wouldn't continue to fight through the challenges. And for Tamia to be the greatest loss that I experienced, and for me to keep going throughout that process, I may have missed a week of school. I emailed my teacher, told her what was happening because we had a limit of how many classes you can miss in order to get your certificate or to pass that module. You had to be in class and present a certain amount of time. By the time that week was over, I had gone across my limit. So I had to explain to her what was going on. And at that time, I'm like, I don't even know if I can finish. I had made so many excuses for myself. But she told me no problem. She'll talk to the dean. I was able to continue classes with no problems. I passed my test with no problems. And the fact that I was able to continue to do something for myself through that process is what encouraged me to go further into my interception of or introspective thought process of what can I do to make sure that I grow out of this situation. And I spoke to my coach because every coach needs a coach, just like every therapist needs a therapist. My coach at the time was one of my instructors, and she recommended this book to me. And she told me that the book was not about grief as much as it was about transitions and how we need to learn about what life's transitions look like so that when any change comes that we actually transition through these processes and continue to move forward. So I'm just really moving and pushing this forward because I didn't even know about the book before she recommended it to me. And when I read the book, it not only helped me through the transition of grief, losing Tamia, and continues to do so because we're still going through legal proceedings because of it, but it has helped me help my clients so much more with identifying the end of something, the neutral zone, and the beginning of something. So I'm never going to come here and sit here and talk about anything I don't have any understanding or knowledge of because I feel like that's very important. And if I don't, I'm always going to bring on an expert to help us along this process and help move us both forward. So I hope you understand and have an emotional connection to why this is so important to me. And if you have an experience that you can identify with that was your last transition or the last change that you had that changed everything around you, but you haven't quite gone through the transition, write us a comment. Let us know your perspective and how you feel. And I'll make sure that I try to touch on some of those topics and include some of those things throughout season 2. I can't wait to see you guys on the next episode. Bye. Thank you for joining your Access Has Been Granted podcast today. I hope this conversation helps to move you forward. If you're on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe and turn on that notification bell. If you're over there on Apple Podcasts, make sure you rate and review the podcast so that we can continue to build our community. And if you're on Spotify, share this podcast with as many people as you can. My name is Brittany Leary. I'm the host of this here podcast, and I can't wait to see you the next time.